once again by the former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. Ambassador, thank you for waiting and for being with us. Colonel Alexander Vindman was on the show earlier this week. He essentially told me that he believes there's a direct line between what happened on that July 2019 phone call between Donald Trump and President Volodymyr Zelensky and what we're seeing now. He believes that Donald Trump weakened Zelensky by withholding a White House meeting and the military aid at the exact time that Zelensky, who was a new and untried president, needed it the most. 2.5 years later, how damaging was that whole incident, in which you also became involved, to the standing and potential success of President Zelensky in Ukraine right now?
Well, there's no question that that whole series of events really damaged the trust between the two countries. Zelensky had been, not a politician. He had been a comedian, and this was one of his very first experiences in international relations. And, he said publicly after that he didn't really trust any other countries. So it was quite damaging. But even more so, I think, when the transcripts were released, others, like President Putin, could see the contempt with which President Trump was dealing with President Zelensky. And I think that in itself was very damaging. And more broadly, the whole world could see that the President of the United States was ready to trade our national security interests for his own personal and political gain. Hugely, hugely damaging, because you have everybody who is so inclined wanting to jump onto the gravy train. So, yeah, I would say it was a very damaging incident. But fast forward to today, President Zelensky, has made the transition from comedian to president of a developing democracy to a war hero, a man who is inspiring not only his own country, but the world.
Tell me about this effort that you were involved in to fight corruption in Ukraine and try and get it to a place where it could join the European Union and ultimately NATO.
Well, that was U.S. policy, and it was also Ukrainian policy following the Revolution of Dignity in 2014. And what that term means, it's kind of an obscure term for Americans, but what it means is rule of law. Ukrainians were tired of having one set of rules for the oligarchs and leaders of the country where they could do whatever they wanted, and ordinary people had to follow the laws and were often, the victims of corrupt efforts to shake them down and so forth. People were sick of it. And they mounted these street demonstrations because they wanted to join the EU when the previous pro-Russian president had turned his back on that. And it turned into the Revolution of Dignity. And so there was President Poroshenko came in, and there was a very clear policy on the part of the Ukrainian government and pro-reform activists and politicians that they wanted to turn the country around, get a hold of corruption, move forward on their democratic efforts, and create the rule of law in Ukraine. And we wanted to support that. We thought that would be terrific for Ukraine, a country, after all, of 44 million people in the heart of Europe. And we thought it would be good for us as well to have a strong, democratic country as a partner in that part of Europe. So we all were working quite hard to support the efforts of the Ukrainians in that direction. And I think Zelensky, certainly in his first pro-reform government, was working in that direction. I need to say that reforms in any country, whether it's in the U.S., Ukraine, or a third country, they go in fits and starts. It's never a straight line. So the Ukrainians have made progress since 2014. They have made progress, since Zelensky came to power, but it's not in a straight line. And I think the Ukrainian people are still hoping for more progress in that area. But right now, the entire country, the entire political spectrum is united behind President Zelensky to fight the common foe, which is Russia.
Yeah, it's important to remember that no country is a monolith, and Ukraine has its own politics inside of it. But right now, they are united around this. A final comment from you, a final thought from you. You knew of Volodymyr Zelensky when he first became president. Most Americans had never heard the name. He was a young man. He's 44 years old right now. And as recently as a month ago, there were Western leaders saying this guy's not up to the challenge of going up against the master manipulator, Vladimir Putin. What has Volodymyr Zelensky done that has impressed you in the last several weeks?
Well, I've been very impressed by how he has used his communication skills as an actor, as a comedian, and his executive skills as the head of a large media empire and now the president of a large country in the heart of Europe. He has combined those two talents to communicate with his people in a time of great stress and peril, unite the Ukrainian people behind him, and inspire the world. He has, the man has met the moment. He is a true Ukrainian hero right now.
Ambassador, thank you for your time tonight. We really appreciate it. Former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, is the author of a new memoir called Lessons from the Edge.